गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गना शॉट वंस अगेन। गना शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। वणकम, सत श्री अकाल और प्रणाम। आज हम बात करने वाले हैं इंडिया चाइना कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स और इसके परिणाम और लेसन्स फ्रॉम 1962 to 2020. We'll just compare both these. Right. I'll give you a little background as to why I'm doing this. I got a request from one of my old friends, Major General Benoy Ponen. We commanded units together in the Northeast, and we did NDC together, and good fast friends. He said, "Look, this year in the Staff College exam, uh, the military history campaign is 1962." So he said, "Why don't you analyze what happened in 1962 and what happened in 2020 and see what lessons, what are the major factors which come in?" I won't call it lessons. मोटे मोटे issues क्या थे जो निकल आए हैं. I said, "Yeah, it's a good thing. Let me try." And it was like comparing apples and oranges. 62 to 220, almost 60 years later. कैसे कंपेयर कर सकते हैं हम? वो किसी और सदी में था, अभी ये किसी और सदी में है, पर फिर भी मैंने किया, पढ़ा, और टू माय सरप्राइज लॉट ऑफ लेसन्स केम आउट. बहुत ही लेसन्स आए थे इसमें, और मैं खुद आश्चर्यजनक हो गया. और जैसे जैसे मैं थोड़ा पढ़ता गया, सोचता गया, क्योंकि पढ़ने के लिए कुछ है ही नहीं खास, सोचता गया, तो I had to split this into two parts. Today we'll cover the geopolitical and the politics of the whole story. Tomorrow we'll do the military part. Right. और ये मेरे को ये भी पता है कि बहुत लोग जो डिफेंस सर्विस के ऑफिसर्स हैं वो अपना सवाल पूछना चाहते होंगे. Definitely I'll take time, even if it takes a long time. I'll go through all your questions and answers, so that I think the question answers should give more value to what we do. Right? Only thing is, if you are an army officer, just put a star or something, and that you're from the army, and then type in your question. Okay. Okay. But before I dive into this subject, I want to tell you something else which I've done, for the armed forces officers. I have put out 20 videos on military technologies of this century, and these videos cover cybersecurity, AI, space technologies, which is in 4 videos, networks, defense innovation, battlefield energy, civil military fusion, whole lot of subjects. I've done it with General Rajiv Narayanan, General Satish Dua, XYZ, and all that. And these subjects will give you a good insight into the latest issues on science and military technology. I would request all of you to subscribe to this channel and put it out and go through these. They're all about, if you leave the question answers out, about 40 minutes per episode. And you can, you'll get a good idea of science and technology, besides what is given in the official, reading material for the staff college preparatory exams, right? And these days, you will be asked questions on AI, you will be asked questions on space and things like that. It's common sense, and it's good. And these videos are very good, not only for you guys as you go along in service, but also for very senior officers like me, who didn't know much when we got into this business of procurement and science and technology. Okay. With this, let me dive into the subject. All of us read, all of us see military history 62, 2020 from this border. And that's the worst thing you can do. To understand what happened in 62 and what happened in 2020, and to understand why China did whatever it did, okay, you have to go into its depth. You have to understand why Tibet is important to China. अगर ये हमें समझ में नहीं आता तो बाकी सब कुछ रद्द है, राइट? तीन कारण हैं और तीन मुख्य विषय हैं और कारण हैं जिसकी वजह से तिब्बत को कभी चाइना छोड़ेगा नहीं. पहले वाटर सिक्योरिटी, दूसरा सिक्योरिटी ऑफ जिंजियांग एंड ईस्ट तुर्किस्तान, और उसके पूरे जो ग्लोबल आइडियाज हैं वो तिब्बत के कंट्रोल के ऊपर निर्भर है. और एज एन एडजंक्ट उसका जो परिणाम जो बोलते हैं हम, इन दो चीज के परिणाम ये है कि जो दलाई लामा है तिब्बत का, वो तिब्बत के लिए पॉलिटिकल कंट्रोल देता है. आज के दिन दलाई लामा इंडिया में है, इनफैक्ट फ्रॉम 59. तो चाइना फील्स लॉस ऑफ पॉलिटिकल कंट्रोल ओवर तिब्बत since Dalai Lama is here. One of the major reasons why China adopts an aggressive tone towards us. You'll understand this as I go along a little, why it cannot have Tibet in any kind of a problem. Okay. First and foremost, have a look at this map. A very interesting map. Tibet is called the water tower of the world or water tower of Asia. And the two major rivers of China, Huanghe, which is to the north, and the Yangtze, flow out of Tibet. The other major rivers, Mekong, Salween, Irrawaddy, Brahmaputra, right? That is Sangpo, Ganges, Satluj, and the Indus, all flow out from Tibet. Control of Tibet gives water security to China, and it also gives control over Asia to China. So the Tibetan plateau is very important. That was in 1962, right? It recognized this problem then. But today, on the Sangpo, right, China has constructed a lot of dams. बहुत बांध बना लिया. और इसके बारे में मैंने एक वीडियो निकाला डैम्स ऑन ब्रह्मपुत्रा करके 1 महीने पहले. मैं उसको एडिट करके कल या परसों मैं आउट करूंगा दोबारा, ताकि आप दोबारा देख सकते हो. जितने डैम है सैंगपो के ऊपर, दे इंक्रीज द इंपॉर्टेंस ऑफ अरुणाचल टू टिबेट, और अदर इंक्रीज द इंपॉर्टेंस ऑफ अरुणाचल टू चाइना, नॉट टिबेट. और ये जो लाल में दिखाया है एट द टॉप वेयर द ब्रह्मपुत्र enters India, that is on the Great Bend, just before Kepangla on the other side, is the new dam which is coming up. और ये डैम बहुत नजदीक है, 30-40 किलोमीटर दूर है एलएसी से. तो इसकी वजह से वो कभी भी अरुणाचल को नहीं छोड़ेगा, या उसका क्लेम अरुणाचल के ऊपर नहीं छोड़ेगा. बट एक तरीका ये है. दूसरा तरीका ये है कि ये जो डैम इज वल्नरेबल टू इंडियन एक्शंस. सब बोलते हैं कि ये डैम है XYZ, बट इट इज वल्नरेबल टू इंडियन एक्शंस. कीप इट इन योर माइंड. एंड इट इज फ्रॉम दिस ग्रेट बेंड वो पानी लेके जा रहे हैं into the Yangtze Basin. So this is a criticality to China which is developing. Okay. Having said this, the 6th Dalai Lama, right, he was born near Tawang. इसीलिए वो मानते हैं Tawang is part of Tibet. क्यों? The Dalai Lama was the temporal head of Tibet, and if the Dalai Lama is from Tawang, Tawang is part of Tibet. इसीलिए वो they claim Tibet, or rather Tawang as South Tibet or Arunachal as South Tibet. You've seen both the things. So they will never leave it. And the Dalai Lama, like I said, gives political control over Tibet. Okay, so this is the lesser part of the story. ये उतना बड़ा चीज नहीं है जितना आगे मैं बताने वाला हूं. अब ये देखिए, कहानी इस इट स्टार्ट फ्रॉम दिस दृश्य. क्या है बीच में? पामीर नॉट and the great mountain ranges which come out of Pamir Knot. From the left, it is Hindu Kush, Altai, Tian Shan, which borders the Kazakhstan and China, Altan Tag, which cuts across the Gobi Desert and splits the Gobi Desert into the Tarim Basin, and I'm forgetting the other thing, I will come to it later. Then the Kunlun, which borders Tibet to the north, the Karakoram, and the Himalayas. Now, naturally, जो पहली बार आप देखते हो इसकी ये नहीं होता. So, have a look at this old Silk Route. ये जो पुराना Silk Route है, वो शंघाई से शुरू होता था. It used to be called the Imperial Highway, और ये चले जाता है through the Taklamakan Desert. And actually, अगर आप देखोगे कि वहां दो लूप है, एक ऊपर और नॉर्थ, और उसके बीच में है ये अल्तिनताग रेंज. यानी कि एक लूप तियानशान और अल्तिनताग के बीच में जाता है, और एक लूप तकलामकान के थ्रू जो जाता है वो है कोनलुन और अल्तिनताग माउंटेन्स के बीच में, राइट. और आगे चला जाता है बुखारा वगैरह वगैरह. और अगर आप देखोगे, ग्रेट वॉल ऑफ चाइना was protecting this imperial route from Mongols and invaders from the north. Okay, this is the alignment of today's Eurasian rail corridor. There is no other alignment, because geographically you can only go through this. That's the next point. We'll come to that. Okay, abhi dekhiye, I've superimposed all those ranges on this, and this is how it looks. बीच में देखिए वो brown line, Altintag splits the loops at the top through Xinjiang. और इसमें मजे की बात है, वो पुराने सिल्क रूट में there is no route from Tibet to Xinjiang उन दिनों में. ठीक, all caravans had to go through it. In fact, if you go back into time, Mongols came to India through the Silk Route from the north through Kashmir, and then of the Bolan Pass and the Khyber Pass through the Hindu Kush. They couldn't come through Tibet. Okay. Now, yeah, the same thing, I put it in a topographical form. Have a look. The Tian Shan is very clear. The Kunlun is very clear. The Karakoram and the Himalayas. And what is all in white, gray is the Tibet Plateau. And on top, where it is written as China, is the Gobi Desert and the Taklamakan Desert. And the Tarim Basin, which is to the north. The Tarim Basin is important क्योंकि वहां बहुत कोल है. उसी के ऊपर अगर हम लगाएंगे तो इस तरीके से दृश्य निकल आता है. ये सब क्यों बता रहा हूं, 2 मिनट में आएगा. दिस इज द गूगल मैप ऑफ दिस. अगर आप गूगल में जाके देखोगे ऐसे निकल आता है. अगर इसके ऊपर आप यही पामीर नॉट का इफ यू पुट, दिस इज व्हाट इट इज. नाउ देयर इज वन ब्लू कॉरिडोर आई हैव पुट. Okay, blue. It's looking like some kind of an aircraft or UAV or whatever it is. Okay. Now this is the vulnerability of China, because if this corridor, always to the north of this corridor was the क्या बोलते हो आपका Great Wall of China, and to the south of the corridor is the Tibetan Plateau. And the Tibetan Plateau slopes down into this corridor. So whoever occupies the Tibetan Plateau can always interfere with this line or with this corridor. That is why it's important. Now, when Colonel Young Husband took his expedition, he threatened this corridor by throwing the Chinese out from Tibet. From then onwards, Tibet has become an existential challenge to China. Okay. Now, if Tibet is not under their control, they have a problem with this corridor, they have a problem with Xinjiang, they have a problem with everything. And Dalai Lama being in India is a long-term challenge to them. That is why you will see that China is hypersensitive about Tibet. Okay. Now let's come to today's borders. If you have a look, you see Tibet and Xinjiang. Then you focus on Aksai Chin. Okay. When you see Aksai Chin, you see POK, and this border now, you have borders with Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Kazakhstan. Xinjiang, basically. And in Xinjiang, I've shown a few purple lines. These are current communication networks across the Gobi Desert. There is no natural, communication between Tibet and what shall I say, Xinjiang. That is why this dotted line which I have put in red dotted line through Aksai Chin gives communication between Tibet and Xinjiang, and that is critical if they have to control the whole thing, right? And then we have gone and constructed the Darbuk Shok DBO road. It becomes hypersensitive. So this understanding is important. If you don't understand that Aksai Chin is critical to China's existence, Tibet is critical to the long-term, territorial integrity of China, we are going to always miss the story. Now, the same thing, if you see, the top line is the Kunlun, the center one is the Altintak, the third one, the centermost is the top line is the Tian Shan, the center one is the Altintak, which is going at a diagonal, or the almost horizontal, the third one from the top is the Kunlun, and you see next the Karakoram and the Himalayas. And if you see, the road goes through, which connects Tibet with Xinjiang, goes through the gap between Kunlun and Karakorams. That's also the plain area of the Depsang and all that. This road is very critical to China, right? And so that is why you'll see, whether it was in 62 or now, the major focus of China was always on this area. And I've also explained to you why they did what they did in Arunachal or why Tawang. The rest are all, peripheral. Today, the entire Arunachal is important for them because water security. Okay. Now I've connected what the terrain features from 62 to, I've connected the terrain features from 1962 onwards with what is it today. The terrain features have not changed, the importance, right? In 2020, they focused mostly on Eastern Ladakh, but it is not exactly only on Eastern Ladakh. They also did something in Sikkim at Nakula, but that I will handle tomorrow. Right. Now we will see a few other issues which we have to consider as far as the political aspects of 1962 and 2020. The first thing, Clausewitz said, war is politics, by other means. It is everyone knows it. But conversely, the converse is politics is war by other means. We don't often remember this. Right. Second, Mao also said something different and significant, almost something similar. क्या उसने बोला? Politics is war without bloodshed, while war is politics with bloodshed. उसने ये बोला कि राजनीति क्या है? लड़ाई है बिना खून के, और लड़ाई जो है वो राजनीति है खून के साथ. तो ये चीज जो है ना बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. ये माओ का थिंकिंग तब से अभी तक चला आ रहा है. कोई भी लड़ाई चाइना के साथ हर वक्त हमें पॉलिटिकली परखना चाहिए, जो हम कभी नहीं करते. अगर पॉलिटिकली हम चाइना को नहीं परखेंगे तो हमें इसको इस चीज के बारे में समझना कभी भी होगा नहीं. और ये बार बार मैं बताता रहता हूँ, हर बार जब मैं चाइना के बारे में बात करता हूँ मैं यही बताता हूँ, चाइना को परखने के लिए पहले उसका पॉलिटिक्स पकड़ो. क्यों, कैसे, अभी बताता हूँ. सबसे पहले आप देखिए इनका जो कार्टोग्राफिक और हिस्टोरिकल क्लेम्स, फैक्टर्स. 62 में अक्साई चिन हाईवे एंड तवांग, ठीक है. 62 में ये थे. अभी 2020 में आर्टिकल 370 और ये डीएसबी और ये दरबुक शॉक डीबीओ रोड जुड़ गए उसके साथ. कारण वही है ओरिजिनल, पर ये दोनों जुड़ गए. क्यों, कैसे जुड़ गए ये देखिए. जब हमने ये आर्टिकल 370 का अब्रोगेट किया. ये जो पहले मैप है ऑन द लेफ्ट इज व्हाट इट वाज बिफोर दैट, एंड इट द राइट मैप is the one which we altered the status quo in Ladakh. हमने सोचा कि पाकिस्तान आर्मी और उनके पॉलिटिक्स न्यूट्रल हो गए. They got neutered because of abrogation of Article 370 and their militancy collapsed. It's a fact. But when you abrogated Article 370, you threatened China because you altered the status in Ladakh. You put a threat onto that हाईवे. और वो जो हाईवे है इज द लाइफलाइन फॉर कनेक्टिंग बिटवीन तिब्बत एंड जिनजियांग. नहीं तो दे हैव टू डील विद बोथ देयर प्रोविंसेस सेपरेटली. राइट. So you have to understand this. I'll take you back to this. You look at this again now. If you take Aksai Chin, then you control the areas up to Kunlun, that is your claim line. Then there's a clear divide between Tibet and Xinjiang. Even today, there are no roads through Tibet down the Kunlun into Xinjiang. Once that happens, control over Tibet and Xinjiang for China is at stake, with so many international borders around. So the political importance of this piece of land is very high. Okay, I've explained this. Now, when you abrogated the Article 370, you actually carried out a political strike on China. They recognized the political threat more than you recognized it. You didn't even understand what the political strike was. Of course, our Prime Minister sent our Foreign Minister, Sri Jaishankar, to China personally to explain the whole thing. He did. But that was not enough. Right? Because The threat you have already posed. You have reaffirmed your case, and added to that, you have built a road which with which you can back your threat into reality. And that spooks China. Okay, so I'll skip this, but let me go through the whole thing. What has abrogation of Article 370 done? It has renewed India's claim on Aksai Chin and violated the status quo through an act of the parliament. That is the political strike which you've done. All previous Sino Indian agreements were virtually get negated. It is also reiterated that China was an illegal occupation of the area, right? Just as the nine dashed line, did to the South China Sea. You violate that, it is a sensitivity. DSDBO road recently completed, and that poses a threat to Aksai Chin. Now, alongside this, you are also raising a mountain core, which it directly threatens the CPEC. After all, the CPEC is just to the north of Aksai Chin. I've not put the road here. Have a look. There's a general alignment, right? And the sensitive area of the Xinjiang, and because all the international borders are around this. Okay. Right. Now I'll come to a few constants of India-China relationship. Now, when you read through history, when you read various articles, and I've read two fantastic articles by two of our ex-foreign secretaries, Mr. Shiv Shankar Menon and Mr. Vijay Gokhale. You see that China has never seen India as an independent power, but it has seen India as always an appendage to great powers. China considers itself as a great power and feels India is a junior power. It also feels that India is unequal to it and untrustworthy because they feel that we say something and do something else. As much as we feel that they say something and do something else. Right? And this lack of trust starts from that famous business of Hindi Chini Bye Bye, and the fact that Chou Enlai, when he came, he gave a proposal that I will give up my claims on the east, you give up your claims in the west. And when he went back, we violated the, I wouldn't say the agreements, the status quo at that point of time. And they felt that was a stab in the back, and thereafter they had to teach us a lesson. Something similar like that has happened now. We'll come to it. They also feel that China is the dominant Asian power without equal. The United States and the USSR are China's primary adversaries historically. Today they are in a different mode of a friendship, but that is transitory. Now, whether it's 62 or now or henceforth, you are trying to change this equation. Okay? That's the similarity. In 62, if China had not done that, India would have been one of the dominant equivalent powers in Asia, which was not acceptable to China then, and even today, the same sentiment goes through. Right, in this entire construct from then to now, Pakistan is a strategic ally to keep India in check in South Asia. Why? Pakistan was one of the first countries to recognize China, the PRC. And ever since then, this equation, this unholy alliance has started. It didn't manifest itself fully in 1962, but it has manifested fully thereafter in many strategic issues has also now, right? In 2020, there were indications that Pakistan will come to China's aid. Okay. India is seen as an adjunct power that must be neutralized through persuasion or coercion from time to time to keep it in check. It Violence has to be used or India has to be coerced to keep it in check. That is the major issue, which is a constant in this relationship and the way China looks at India. And that has not changed from then to now. Okay, there are other constants. China feels that the global balance of power is between China, Soviet Union, and now Russia and the USA. And India is the wild card in this, which has to be kept in check. Now, the CCP narratives from then to now, they talk of a righteous war to constantly remind Chinese people, this is important, that they are putting psychological pressure on India that China is a greater power. They're selling this to their people that, look, we are the greater power. We will put pressure on India and ensure it doesn't rise. And they also say that the party is the resolute defender of the territory and Chinese interests. The interest is water and connectivity through the Tibet corridor. And that's the effect of the young husband expedition. This threat has manifested in their mind, right? And it's so. If tomorrow you go and occupy, hypothetically, you occupy Tibet, you pose a threat to the Eurasian rail corridor, as you did then. Okay? There is also a feeling in China that the sincere attitude and generosity of China is seen as a weakness by some Indian politicians. This is what they sell. ये चूरन बेचते हैं अपने देशवासियों को. Right. China, the Chinese scholars, whenever you read them across, wherever you get to read them, believe that Indian response to future military coercion will remain indefinitely low. इसका मतलब क्या है कि India will never retaliate and cross into Tibet. That is what they felt in 1962, and they did what they did, and that is what they feel now, and that is why they did what they have done. Their analysis is India will not cross the LAC, if you put it in simple words. Okay. Then there are issues of geopolitical costs. What are these? Historically, in every conflict with India, there have been very low geopolitical costs which China has to pay. It can coerce India, but it is answerable to no one, even now. Okay? But if, say, Taiwan is to be captured, there's always a debate, will USA come to its aid or not? With Korea and Japan, there's an alliance. So China thinks 10 times before going across there because there are geopolitical costs of getting into a war are concerned. They can face sanctions. There's so many things which can happen. But if China prosecutes a war against India, it has never paid a cost. Everyone talks, says, oh, they have done this, that, but does nothing. So there's no cost. Historically, they believe that USA will not get directly involved militarily in any India-China dispute. And that has been again proven, whether in 62 or in 2020. Right? It's also proven that USSR will not take sides against China. They'll not side with you against China. They demonstrated it in 62 and in 2020. In fact, in 2020, their foreign minister Lavrov came to say, look, why don't you become friends? The EU chap said, why don't you trade more so that China is not aggressive? The cost China has to pay is very less, in fact, almost zero. And they also feel that India, in its own imagination, will not be a junior ally to anyone, since it has a tradition of pursuing an independent policy. Since you're not prepared to be aligned with anyone, like Pakistan is, right? So you're not prepared to be a junior to anyone like an appendage, and hence you can be sorted out. They know that you don't have any friends, and you have to do everything on your own. Okay. Then we have this great Pakistan obsession. We had this in 62 because we were then freshly out of 47 and formation of the nation, and we were always looking that side. By then, Kashmir was in problems. And now, of course, I don't have to explain to you. India has always focused on Pakistan from 1948 onwards, whether it's Kashmir, Pakistan, whatever it is, our orientation is there. And proxy war in this century, rather from the 90s, late 90s onwards, right, has clouded our outlook completely towards Pakistan. If you take the time of the Khalistani movement and the Kashmir insurgency, where it has gone till the Article 370, our focus was that side. You wanted to keep China off your back, so you were not prepared. In 62, you were more worried about Pakistan. You felt you could handle China, and you felt China will not, invade us. Then we have spawned a set of military leaders from then to now, military and political, both leaders, military and political, who know very little about China. China के बारे में बहुत कम जानते हैं. इसमें कोई दो राय नहीं है. My entire generation didn't know much about China. We have only Pakistani experts. These are facts. Our enemy number one has been neglected always. और तो दूर छोड़िए, बहुत लोग को अपना नॉर्थ ईस्ट स्टेट के बारे में भी नहीं जानते हैं कि कौन से स्टेट कहाँ है. अगर मैं आम एक इंडियन नागरिक को पूछूं कि भाई नॉर्थ ईस्ट में कितने स्टेट हैं, आप उनका नाम बता दो, इनको पता नहीं होगा. Right? Why does China go to war with India? This is another factor which has come out in my thinking, or rather what I saw. China's adventurism in the Indian Ocean region or in disputed areas are aimed at imposing reputational costs in India, on India. That means your reputation you have to be shown down because you're a competitor. You're their peer competitor in Asia. Every time, if you see, this has stuck. Even our writers write. They say Galwan action happened where 20 Indian soldiers died and 4 Chinese soldiers died. So, reputationally, you have lost it. So, their adventurism is aimed at lowering your reputation. In both cases, in 1962 and in 2020, US had no plans to militarily engage China through Taiwan. Or, in fact, in 62, Chiang Kai-shek was in no position to attack China with or without the help of USA. So that flank was secure. In 2020, if you see, the virus, the pandemic gave the opportunity. The pandemic incapacitated a lot of US capability because USA was hobbling on its own. One of its aircraft carriers were down. And that gave the opportunity for China. That flank was secure. Right? And like I said, Eastern Ladakh is most crucial to them from then to now. Then they have this punitive outlook. There is a feeling in China that 1962 war brought decades of peace for China with India. तो वो सोचते हैं कि जब तक वो इंडिया के ऊपर दबाव डालेंगे, इंडिया को मिलिटरली कोर्स करेंगे, राइट, वो इंडिया उनके साथ कोऑपरेट करेगा। इंडिया के साथ बातचीत करने से वो कोऑपरेशन नहीं आएगा। इसीलिए जो 2020 का एग्रेशन है, ये उस रीजनिंग के तहत है कि इसको दो चार मारो और सब ये इंडिया फिट हो जाएगा। वो दूसरी बात है, इट बैकफायर्ड ऑन देम बैडली। ओके, then there is this India's political miscalculation. In India, there's always been a misplaced political belief that China was unlikely to invade or start a conflict without risking a wider war. हम सब सोचते हैं कि नहीं होगा। उस वक्त भी हमने कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी को नहीं पढ़ा, माओ को नहीं पढ़ा और चौनला को नहीं परखा, और इस युग में भी हमने जी जिनपिंग को नहीं देखा। आप देखिए, जी जिनपिंग जब से till from the time Xi Jinping has assumed in 2010, there only been incursions and face-offs have increased. At that time also, they did whatever they had to do, and we didn't read what Mao was all about and how violent a chap he was, and he was only looking for an opportunity for war. Okay? We always felt that USSR or Russia will help, and it does not help. Then on this great thing, Hindi Chini bye-bye factor, we trusted our enemy. In fact, in the run-up from 49 to 62 or in between, politically and geopolitically, हमने उनके साथ साइड किया और हमने ये यहाँ तक बोला कि China should be get the permanent seat in the UN and not India. 2010 to 2020, we repeated this. We kept siding China for many reasons. Right? Now, Xi's track record should have warned us, but we did not. Like we did not heed Mao's track record, we did not heed Xi's thing. So, a major lesson for now and future, reading Chinese leadership is very important. There's a big question in our history. Is China a partner or a rival? We never had the strategic clarity that China is our adversary. Now we are very clear that China's behavior is now completely adversarial. Right. Okay, then there's this issue. The CCP gives out its military theory. Everything about whatever the PLA does, right? The guiding theory of the Communist Party is the party's systematic thinking about warfare and national defense issues. It incorporates the thoughts of Karl Marx, Mao Zedong, Deng Xiaoping, Jiang Zemin, Hu Jintao, and Mao Xi. I'll prove it a little later. They have a political thinking on war. PLA is a party organ, not a national instrument. Chinese leaders give military direction to the PLA and prepare it accordingly. It is complete politico-military fusion from then to now. You see this is the Chinese military strategy. It's a call about active defense. Right? Mao gave out very clearly what he wanted PLA to do. So did Deng Xiaoping. So did Jiang to Xi. They have given very clear ideas. What is the strategic principles? I'll just go over it. Mao said People's War under modern conditions. He started with the People's War, then he came to People's War under modern conditions where casualties were acceptable. It didn't matter. Deng Xiaoping gave the thing that local war under modern conditions. They all talk of war. Jiang Zemin wanted local war under modern informatized conditions. They spelled it out and given it in black and white. Hu Jintao He very clearly said local was under informatized conditions, and he improved the technology in China, in PLA basically. Then Xi Jinping today, he's talking of informatized local wars. He's talking of fully modernized force by 2035. Have we had this ever in our history? No. You have a clear lack of politico-military synergy. Now just think, you did not do any strategic or tactical review, and you undertook forward posturing without any backup in 1962. You occupied posts in Kiziljalga and all in Aksai Chin, went up to Tagla without any backup, and you felt that police could do the job. No, okay, that is then. What did you do from 2010 onwards? You have been reducing the army strength, and you have reduced it by over 1 lakh people, and you have bought in a Agnipath scheme. Where is the, you know, strategic review or the tactical review about the whole affair? That what is it that you need to defend your country? We have never had a national security doctrine strategy document. We never had it. We've always had a debate whether we should have one or not. Whether it in 62 or in 2020, you have a problem of political civil services, armed forces synergy missing. That is why we are not fully prepared. You always had questions. You never had enough budgets to prepare yourself, whereas the other fellow was preparing all through. Now, propaganda and influence ops is something which has been completely missing in action. If you see the three warfare strategy of China, public opinion, psychological warfare, and information operations, and legal lawfare, they've been practicing it from then. आज के नाम the three warfare strategies आज का नाम है, it's not old. I mean, the ingredients are pretty old. We have never even attempted anything like close to that. We don't have any narrative. What we've had is strategic overconfidence of the political class that we will defend the nation. Right? And complete absence of the military and national security architecture. It is apparent. Even now, we have this problem. Maybe things are changing. But in 2020, we had a problem. The thing is that political actors in India have never had a strategic outlook. Bureaucracy is even worse. The moment the first shot is fired, every bureaucrat becomes a wallpaper. He gets onto the wallpaper. He's part of the wallpaper. He has never stood up for India in the public domain when the chips were down. Even the other day, in 2020, who went to Ladakh? The Prime Minister and the CDS. They went and faced the nation on TV and where have you. Okay. What's the dichotomy we have? The constitutional authority vested in the political leadership by the mandate of the people to defend the nation. The constitutional authority is vested in the military leadership by the act of parliament to defend the nation. Both these actors are answerable to the parliament and the nation. The bureaucracy is supposed to assist the constitutional authorities to carry out their duties. They are not answerable to the nation. No bureaucrat has ever answered the nation. However, they wield power in our setup since the politico-military divide in the nation has been manifest since independence. It has never changed. It is still there, despite whatever has happened by appointment of CDS and things like that, and we are going to theatre commands, all that. Even now, we've had this problem. For 9 months, we didn't have a CDS. Right. So today I've covered the complete, political issues of 1962 and 2020. Tomorrow I'll do the military aspects. right? Of course, I will have to refer back to this. So I'll go over the questions. First, let me take the sticker questions. Sindhu, Satluj, and Brahmaputra originate in Tibet, not Ganga and Yamuna. They originate in Uttarakhand. Our only opinion is to rule Tibet one day for or three rivers. Okay, fine. That's your opinion. It's contentious, but we'll leave it at that. Eshan, Jayan sir, in case we have to make a major incursion in order to retake POK, do you believe that the Chinese will try to counter that by staging an attack on their own anywhere on the eastern front? It depends on the circumstances under which all this happens, right? First and foremost, I don't visualize us taking a major incursion to retake POK for the next 10-15 years because you've not made the political ground to do all that. Unless you make the political ground to do all that, you cannot, undertake all these adventures, right? Next is an off-topic question. Will our new light tank that is in development give us an edge in mobility and firepower in the northeastern terrain? In some places, it will. Let's hope it comes out. Mostly in North Sikkim. In the other places, there are very few places where you can use tanks at all. Okay. The next question is the fact that we severely thrashed the Chinese in Galwan, but the rest of the world is completely unaware of it, shows one of our major weakness we work on ASAP or offensive media and propaganda capability. I highlighted it. Our ability to carry out information ops, our ability to carry out propaganda, our ability to project our narrative is weak. It's a national deficiency. And it is all the more surprising due to the simple fact that we have one of the best networks through Doordarshan. We can reach anywhere in the country. Okay. So, unfortunately, our need to focus on Pakistan is justified as they fight extremely dirty and are backed by external forces who specialize in destabilizing a nation from within. I agree with you, Ishan. Till some part of the time, it was good to that we had to focus on Pakistan, और हमारे पास कोई चारा नहीं था. But excessive focus is what I'm not. अभी भी आपको एक उदाहरण देता हूँ. मैंने इतने वीडियो बनाया चाइना के ऊपर, सब बोलते हैं चाइना के वीडियो अच्छे हैं, पर उसका व्यू कितने होते हैं? 1000, 1500. अगर एक थर्ड रेट वीडियो भी मैं पाकिस्तान के ऊपर बनाऊंगा और उसको दोबारा 2 दिन के बाद मैं चलाऊंगा, वो उसके सब देखते हैं. हमारा जो नेशनल थिंकिंग वो पाकिस्तान की ओर है. हमारा जो मेन एनिमी जो चाइना है उसके ओर नहीं है. राइट. Now let me take other questions from who all have asked. Okay, Shritik says how to impose differential military costs on China for hostility at LAC. They are the bigger economy, more organized and better equipped. How do we manifest more Kailash range risk operations? You've given the answer. On ground, GDP doesn't matter. Differential military effect doesn't matter. The man on the ground matters. You did what you had to do in Yangtze. You have to do something similar. And you can undertake low-cost options. You have to project yourself across Tibet. आज तक हमारा जो रवैया है वो है डिफेंड. आप किले को डिफेंड करो. आप किले को डिफेंड करते रहिए. एक दिन वो किले के ऊपर it will be broken. The walls of the fort will get broken. To defend a fort, you have to go outside and defend the fort. All army officers here will understand this. We don't project that offense outside. We don't see how we can defend our fort from the other side of the LAC. We need to think of that. How do you do that? Whether it's by firepower, whether it's by surveillance, whether it's by subterfuge, whether it's by subversive activities, whether it's by subversion, whatever, you have to pose a threat to the other side. That's the thing. Yeah, I can't help it because this is what I can show over the net, right? Whilst the narcissistic Chinese and Western media houses are on a self-boasting image, General, thank you. Thanks a lot for this, Amar. Yeah, right. Pratik Bandodkar, if there's any conflict with China in the future in the East, can India occupy Aksa Chin or interject the highway passing through it to put pressure? Look, this is desirable, but you need to have the capability to do all this, right? You have to think offensively to have the capability of doing this. And there are places in Aksai Chin and nearby. Actually, Demchok is their major vulnerability. And now, of course, like I said, the dam is coming up as a major vulnerability. So vulnerabilities will open up with development, right? So you have to cash on it. Okay, right? Current wars of Russia and Ukraine have proven that lessons from the past isn't helping much. Do you think more than lessons, we need elements of surprises in future wars? We'll talk of it tomorrow. Uh, Weaponry aside, superior or inferiority, what matters is the men behind the weapon, will to sacrifice and shed blood. Doesn't India risk losing a large territory if it starts a conflict? Yes. Till now, till 2020, it felt that it did not have that. It was under no threat or under no risk. But I think after 2020 and the incidents thereafter, they come to realize that it's not easy. That is why you find that their posturing along the LAC has reduced. The physical posturing is there, but the geopolitical posturing has reduced, and now they are asking, seeking, dialogue with you. Let's freeze the LAC. We'll talk. Right? Can China afford to sacrifice hundreds of thousands of soldiers in the Himalayas? Will come down to that only. I don't think so because the demography doesn't permit them, and that's something which we have to be cognizant of. And इसके बारे में हर वीडियो में बोलता रहता हूँ. The demography is one of the weak links of China as it is emerging, and we need to exploit that. How we have to do it militarily is something which we have to put our heads together and think. Like what Soviets did in Stalingrad, men who are good enough to fight and men who are enough to take a bullet for a country, does China have that question mark? Okay. And will their softies take a bullet again? Question mark, right? We'll get to further questions. Why didn't China open a second front during Kargil conflict? Did China doubt its own military prowess? In 1992, in 1999, the trend line between India and China were that of accommodating each other. We were to join hands. That's the time when the BRICS was coming about. That's the time when the SCO was coming about. That was the time when we felt that China and India can join hands with Russia and form the RIC, Russia, India, China triangle, and also take up global issues. That's why they didn't open the second front, and they themselves were not that strong at that point of time that they could do all that. And you also have to remember, this was the period between Tiananmen and Beijing Olympics when Tibet was on the boil. Those days, a lot of things were happening in Tibet, right? And they couldn't risk a war against across the LAC because their tail would have been this thing. After the Beijing Olympics, they have actually, capped all kinds of protest in Tibet, and with a heavy hand. And Tibet is something which they feel they can handle today. Why are we so defensive even play don't matter with China? Well, that's a government policy. You have to have strength to deal with China. China respects strength, right? One last comment, regardless regardless of what any other nations claim, the Chinese are definitely intimidated by our current administration. I agree with you. There's no doubt about it. Ame Bugde says, what do you think? Do you think in China-India conflict, rogue elements from Myanmar will play a major part on Myanmar front? Just 300 militants have put Manipur on boil. No, I don't agree with you. Then nothing of this kind will happen. This 300 militants and all is hearsay. We don't know. There are issues on both sides of the story. So we'll leave Manipur out of it and we'll not talk of it. Okay. Hello, sir. Joining after some time. Hope you're well. I hope you are well, Seth. Long time since I've seen you. Yeah, we have changed a lot past. I agree with you. My granddad and grandpa, wing commander, used to talk about problems with the bureaucracy. Sad to hear it hasn't improved much in the years after they retired. Yeah, I agree with you. And that's sad for me also. Army should take over administration of the country. No, we shouldn't. Right? We are a democracy. We should be proud of being a democracy. Despite what all I've said, I still respect democracy. I think our politicians have done a very good job to make India the fifth largest economy in the world, and we are heading to be the third largest economy in the world. Wherever the army has taken over, look at Pakistan, look at Bangladesh, look at Myanmar, see their status. So let's have a larger, when you analyze a particular event or something, you analyze it in that framework. But when you start looking outside beyond that framework, you have to have a bigger thing. Right. Um, what are the issues having a military doctrine for India? Well, that's something which I've just not understood. Why are we not having it? We have not understood. Too much biased enmity with Pak that we forgot our actual enemies. All talk, yeah. I agree with you completely, Sen Gupta. One of the basic problems in our country is that even Pakistan has a national security doctrine. We don't have it. We need to rethink this whole story. Regarding Daulat Beg Oldie, what should be the future plan? Feel that's a very strong strategic position to pinch both our naughty neighbors. Yeah, it is. That's why we put the Darpuk Shok DBO road, right? And we are on track there, right? Yeah, request to cover the 1962 war shortcoming and यही तो कर रहा हूँ मैं और क्या कर रहा हूँ. So, as we have seen in the past few years, border incidents happening with started with Sikkim, clashes in the north and east and Galwan. Is it not like history being repeated? It is, Vikrant, it is. And tomorrow I'll talk about this. We've never had, actually, if you look at it, the Sikkim boundary is a delineated boundary. It's a delimited boundary between when Sikkim was an independent country and China. Actually, there's no dispute there, but it has started, right? That's all part of the geopolitical outlook of China, which I explained to you. Okay. So all this, if you see the clashes between, I'll cover it tomorrow. Why, right? Jain sir, what about building villages on his side of the line? Yeah, he is building. He's fortifying the LAC, and he's also brought that sovereignty law, so that any hereafter it's not a border negotiation. What all he's holding is sovereign to him, and he'll treat you. He'll negotiate from the viewpoint that he's negotiating for his sovereign territory. So he's not prepared to give up anything. The moment he's declared sovereignty and he's put villages there to signify the LAC, right? He's declared sovereignty over the area. We're going to have a tough time going ahead. Yeah, thanks a lot for this. Yeah. In 1962, they probed us on every front, and I think they're doing the same these days. No, I don't think so. Look, 1962 was a little different. We'll talk about the military part tomorrow. How can we enhance our capabilities in propaganda and basically you need to have it should be part of our national security doctrine. Otherwise, you go nowhere. We are not focused but obsessed with useless state like Pakistan. It's yeah, I agree. Okay. Can't we see another war coming in next few years? Not like they want to defeat us militarily, but to show us that there is one superpower in Asia. Look, they have a problem. If you see what's coming out of China, you see my analysis yesterday, the power matrix, the global power matrix, things are changing, right? So I don't see war coming, but chutputs will happen. Okay. Ah, why did Chinese retreat from Eastern Theater as it's claimed Tawang as Tibet's integral part? I think they were not prepared for the success they gained. And I think they were worried that once the passes close, they can't sustain. Because and talking of communications there, I don't know whether they were prepared for a longer stay this side when the passes were closed. I don't know whether the Mao thought it was enough to teach India a lesson and go back. You have to realize that China was also in turmoil at that time. The Great Leap Forward was going on, right? And he was killing people by the dozen. So, and there was a famine in China. People were dying. So a lot of it was for externalizing the whole thing. If he had, got that, fine. So the rest he left it. Right. Could you please expand on misbelief of China being unlikely to invade without risk of expansion? See, the problem with China today is that geopolitically it is weakened, economically it is weakening, and their military is now largely untested and untried. Right. So, will they undertake any invasion? And how will they control the whole story? What if it expands? What if you go across? Can they control the whole story? The best way to control the whole story is to undertake small punitive measures along the LAC, get hold of a small post, and show you down. It is the reputational cost of showing India down, which today is more important to them. And if they have to expand this and not control the whole story, and they get into a big slog with India, what happens on the Taiwan front? What happens in the Western Pacific, especially with Quad in place? What happens if Taiwan tomorrow declares independence and they don't have the capability to go back there? They have problems. And this is one of the reasons why they didn't escalate in Eastern Ladakh. And this is what I had argued then. And today we are much stronger. Right. Uh, Political issues at 1962 and now the whole thing was about political issues only. What else? Yeah, Navtej Shergill, could you explain war of nibbling and anti-nibbling actions in the pretext of 1962? I'll explain this tomorrow if you don't mind, because tomorrow is the military part. Right. Uh, Praveen, thanks a lot. Great work, sir. One suggestion: can you please create a session on the role of Indian military in 1947, India's independence? Yeah, I will do that. I'll do that one of these days. See, in 1947, to give it in a short thing, 1947 we probably didn't have a direct role, but we had a tremendous role in independence. If you have to go back to the Air Force mutiny in Gurdaspur, and then the naval mutiny in Bombay, and then you have to go back on the psychological issue of the 1980, 1857 mutiny. These three, one day I'll cover this and put it across to you, because I've done a bit of research on this. Okay, as China faces a demographic problem, wouldn't it be wise for India to engage China? Somehow they might stand down since they don't have the manpower to. They'll not stand down. Let's not be under any foolish thing. There's no point in engaging with China when they want to, right? There's no question. Look, the very fact that they've built villages on the LAC and they've declared a sovereignty law and they want to solidify the whole thing and they're sinicizing Tibet, etc., you should know what they're doing. What measures to be taken to bridge the politico-military gap to mitigate future embarrassments? Please go to Gunnershot, type politico-military fusion, and you'll find 3 articles on it. Read it for all of you. www.gunnershot.com. There are also audios which I've done. I've also done a video, politico-military fusion as part of lessons of Ukraine war. It's there in Gunnershot. Ukraine war lessons on politico-military fusion. Read all, go through all this. It's all there. Yeah, I'll not get into General Thorat's plan is all that because we're not discussing the 62 war, right? But his thing was basically to strengthen the LSE fundamentally. And we are doing it now. Tamil Hindu. Sir, if there is a political will for us to salami slice some areas in northern Arunachal or Aksai, how prepared are we? See, we can carry out this political, we can do this salami slicing. There's no doubt about it. I have no doubt about it at all. But we have to do it intelligently. We have to do it along with what they have to do, and you have to use lawfare as a repost or retaliatory measure and all, unless you want to start off something, right? We did this, incidentally, for those of you. I mean, if I've given you a negative picture about what we have done, check a board in Arunachal and in Sikkim and all in same Tawang sector, right? There's 88. We occupied areas on the LAC. In fact, we dominate the LAC in Arunachal today. That's why they keep coming to Yangtze and getting kicked back. They have problems, right? We did something like Kailash Range, we did then in a bigger scale. Okay. So we have done, it's not as if we have not done. Can you do more? You can. Okay. A lot of these questions are coming up, which Shivendu saying new question. The new dam under construction near the Great Bend opposite Arunachal. Do you foresee any land grab operation? Look, there you can't do any land grab in that area because Kepangla is a steep fall. Even if you hold that, you can't hold that. Difficult. But the dam is vulnerable. Even if whether they hold the land or not, it is vulnerable to your missiles and all that. It's a sensitivity and it's a vulnerability which we should exploit. Can we retrieve Aksai? If yes, how? Either by war or diplomacy or by mutual? We have to wait a long time. There's a long way out to go. At this point of time, we have to first restore the LAC and then see what to do. Okay. Could you cover the Burma front? That's a long story. Road Past Mandalay by John Masters. That's the book. Whether 2062 or 2020, Chinese civilizationally recognize only one thing, might or strength. Yeah, there's no doubt. I already said they respect strength and we should use it. Okay. Yeah, I think we have finished all the questions generally. Yeah, last one, new one, Snehashish Sahu. When should India discard one China? We have already discarded it. For the past 10 years, we have not been using. Ever since they insisted on stapled visas, we've diluted the one China policy. Very recently, the Chinese ambassador said, "Oh, India should talk about one China policy," and all. We told them to get lost. India is one of the few countries which doesn't talk of the one China policy, right? Uh, okay, how about the next incidents taking place in Barahoti in Uttarakhand, from where it all started? As we are not in, I don't think they will see. Let us see how things go, right? Uh, I don't think we're going there as it. Like I said, we have to be prepared for small things. But today, I think we are in a situation where we can do appropriate co, right? And we should do it, and we should take the thing across. And if we do that, and which like we did in earlier occasions, we'll get through, right? Yeah, that's all for today. So tomorrow evening we'll get back with the military aspects. Thanks a lot. Good evening and Jai Hind.